Hi, and welcome to the BookishStitcher podcast. My name is Jeanette. You can find me on Ravelry, Instagram, and Goodreads as BookishStitcher, all one word. I hope you guys have had a lovely couple of weeks since I last podcasted. This is going up a bit later than I had wanted it to because it's the Valentine's Day week, and originally my husband and I, we always go out and do something just very simple, like hang out for Valentine's Day. If it's on a weekday, he'll take off work and we'll go out to lunch or something like that. But he had told me that this year he had a meeting that he couldn't get out of, and so he wasn't going to be able to do anything for Valentine's Day. So I just assumed that that was it, that we weren't doing anything. And so I came home yesterday from taking my kids to school and opened the garage door, and his car was parked in there, and he was in there crouched down with a heart of some caramels for me. And he had taken the day off, but he had taken it off on an unexpected day, not on Valentine's Day, because that was the only day that he could. And so we spent the day together yesterday, and so I didn't podcast because I didn't want to stop in the middle of such a wonderful day to, do a podcast. And so, yeah, it was just great. We had breakfast together. We didn't go out for dinner or lunch or anything, but we just had a breakfast together at a little tiny place downtown San Antonio. And then we went to, it was, I guess, something kind of like Cinema Tuesdays, I think they might call it. But at this one movie theater, it's like the only really, I guess, artistic show. It's the only really theater that shows really artistic movies in the city that I know of. And it had a thing of the Loving Vincent film. And I don't know when this came out, but I had heard about it and watched a documentary on how they were making it. And I'm gonna get choked up because I had wanted to see this, and my husband was like telling me what movie we were gonna go see, and he was getting choked up about it too. So we went and saw that, and it was the most stunningly beautiful film I've ever seen. The work that went into that with the hand painting of each frame was astounding and gorgeous, and just such a work of love, I feel like, from all the artists that reproduced the film in his style. If you haven't seen it, even if you don't like Vincent van Gogh, I would just, if you love beautiful things that are just, you can see the depth of the brush strokes in it, and it's just stunningly beautiful. I would definitely recommend, renting it from somewhere. It was wonderful. And yeah, I saw that, and it was just so beautiful, and I was crying, and it's just, the story of Vincent van Gogh really is something that I think is just so sad and tragic. And they had out in the lobby, or the main area where you check in for the movie, they have in this, because it's kind of an artistic theater, they have artists that can display their work and then have price tags, and people can call and buy it, and it's kind of a way for artists to sell some of their work with that if they can't get into galleries and stuff like that. And there were two artists there, one that was modern in style, and one that was I guess contemporary, but it was of women. And this is the one I loved. It had pictures of women, but in different styles. Like, one of them had taken, the one that I really loved, had taken a woman, and like, it almost looked like she had been shattered, and there was just this haunting look of sadness in her eyes, and it was just beautifully and tragic, and it kind of displayed on the outside of the painting. You could tell the brokenness on the inside, and it was just beautiful. That one was sold. And of the two artists that were there, the one that had the portraits of, not portraits, but paintings of women, had sold too. And if you know anything about Van Gogh, you know that he painted, over 800 paintings in his career. When he started when he was 28, painting, because he got kicked out of every other profession he tried. He just couldn't find anything that people, that he was good at. At 28, he started painting. He died, I think, 8 years later at 36. But he created over 800 paintings, and he only sold one while he was alive. So that person, that artist that was displaying their paintings in this tiny little movie theater, who had sold more paintings in their life than Vincent van Gogh. And it's just so touching to think of that. I'm saying it's the Knitting in Books podcast, but you wouldn't know it right now, but that's what I did. And it's just a tragic story to me. In college, I took some art history classes and different art classes, and I've always loved drawing. My mom used to, when I was little, say that I was going to work for Disney, and I just always loved drawing, but ever since being a young child, I was a very big perfectionist, and my drawings were never good enough for me, so I never even took art classes at school because I was afraid that, I was always afraid of critique. Because I always thought that they weren't good enough. I was critiquing myself enough in my head, but just so I've always had a big appreciation of artists, and especially because Van Gogh's style is just so beautiful, and he wasn't one of my favorite painters, William Adolphe Boho. He painted a lot of French peasants, but they were very realistic, and it always is amazing to me people that are artists that don't necessarily go for realism, because you have to be brave, I feel like, because you're creating something that doesn't look like exactly what you're painting, but then you feel like it expresses something, or it's just this creativity, and you're not criticizing yourself and saying, oh, it doesn't look good because it doesn't look exactly like a portrait of that person. So it just amazes me, people that like feel like their art is good enough and they put it out there even though it's maybe very different or very, that kind of stuff. So anyways, enough art. Let's get on into the knitting. I probably just spent 5 minutes talking about a film that you should go see. It's amazing. So I'm bundled up here because it is freezing outside, and I've got some tea, some caramel rooibos, and it's in my Bronte mug. Today feels like it's a very Bronte-ish day, which I normally really love and find to be kind of romantic. But today, after seeing the Loving Vincent film, it just feels kind of desolate. And so it's really cold, and I'm just bundled up having my tea. And yeah, so I have 2 finished objects for you guys. It's ravellinics, and I've been enjoying watching the Olympics with my kids at night and finishing up some projects. So the first thing that I finished is this little bookmark. It's a Susan B. Anderson pattern, and it is the half pint mittens, and it just goes inside a bookmark or a book. And so, ta-da, that's just what it looks like. And it works really well. I kind of measured it against a bigger hardback that I had, so it fits different sizes. And that only took a little while. I don't know why I had left it forever not finishing it, so I'm glad that it's finally finished. And then the next thing that I finished is the Rocketeer hat by Willie Wormhead, and it's knit out of some Spartacus dyes from the Gilmore Girl Yarn Club colorway in the Rocker Chick. I think I talked about how I was saving this yarn because I loved it so much, but I decided that I really wanted to use it and give it to someone who would love it, so I knit a little chemo cap out of it, and it is a little one. It's probably will fit a small child's head, and makes me think of, there's this little boy in my daughter's class who started the school year and then found out shortly after starting the school year that he was very ill with cancer, and he's now been at home, not able to come back to school. And we can write him letters and stuff, and my daughter draws him pictures and we mail them to his mom. I can only imagine like how hard that must be on his parents, but there's chemo caps for little kids, which is really sad. But I hope to knit a whole bunch, and hopefully just the fun colors, and it's such soft yarn, so hopefully that will bring a tiny little speck of joy into someone's life. So that is all of the finished objects. Now on to my works in progress. I've been pulling out some older whips to work on because, like I said, I'm doing the whips dancing event for the ravellinics. And I love watching the Olympics. I always get inspired by doing them. I remember when I was a little girl, I used to do figure skating, and I always wanted to go to the Olympics for figure skating, but the rink was way too far from our house to be able to go there consistently. And I just remember going and loving and doing the couple of years that I did it. So watching the figure skating and stuff with the Winter Olympics is amazing. And this is in one of my older whips. It's also a Susan B. Anderson pattern. This is in a Casey Pockets to Go bucket thing. It's a little bag and I really like the colors. It's hedgehogs. And these are some mittens that I had started and not finished because I realized I needed to convert the pattern and I just kind of stopped. So I worked ahead with that and have been knitting on it, and I love the way that the yarn is speckling up. I'm trying to remember what yarn this is. Oh, it is Spun Fiber Co. and it's from a club, so you can't get the colorway anymore because it's a club from January 2016. But it is Taiga, the colorway, I believe. And that is what it looks like. And I haven't done the other mitten yet, but this one's almost done. I just have to do a little bit more, and then the fingers, and then the thumb, and work on the next one. So it's definitely doable within the ravellinics time frame. Then the next thing, take another sip of my tea. The next thing that I pulled out to work on for one of my whips is in this You Sew and Sew bag. It's a mom bunny and a baby bunny as I think of it, but yeah, I really like the colors and the kind of woven-esque feel for the fabric. And here is a cowl that I started, first the sparkle cowl for the podcast group forever ago. And this is from Western Sky Knits in the Bella colorway. It's beautiful, very autumnal, probably perfect for when I started doing it, but it still feels really like I'm going to love it right now. So this is not where it was when I picked it up. This is marking the front side from the back side, because when I picked this up to work on it, I spent over an hour, almost an afternoon, going back. It was on a weekend, going back and looking at it and putting it down, trying to figure out and reading the pattern, because I hadn't marked where I was in the pattern when I put it down 2 years ago. Just a bad mistake. But finally I was looking at the pattern and it said, you know, at the end of one of the pattern repeats, it said a stitch count. And I was like, oh, stitch count. I can't read what's going on here because it's variegated and it's got stellina in it, and the pattern is very, there's a lot going on. So I could not read what was happening, and then so I decided to count in the stitch count. So I counted it and then realized where I was exactly, because I had stopped at the end of a pattern repeat. So thank you, past me, for helping future me out. My future me just took a while to remember what I should do, but I was able to figure it out, and then I started knitting on it some more, and now I have gotten to the point where I'm ready to join in the round and continue on working with it. And I've just been, you know, this cannot be done while watching the Olympics, so I've been listening to an audiobook while knitting on that, because it is, you know, it does have a lot of different things that you're doing at different points in the pattern repeat. Sorry, I just got kind of like in my head, like a migraine is starting. I can kind of feel it in the back of my head. So yeah, the next thing I have is this bag from Bling Your String that my friend Lori gave to me, or Bink Waffle, sorry, Bink Waffle bag. And this is my February Desert Vista Dye Work socks, and it is in the Zombody RU colorway. And this is very pretty. I thought it was a good color for February and Valentine's Day time of year. And I was hoping to be done with one sock by now, but I'm not. But these are going to be from my daughter, but since for the club you have to knit adult size socks, so I looked up the smallest woman's size shoe, which is a size 5, and cast on for that. So it's a small size 5 foot, and then I'm going to make, because you have to use over half the ball, so I'm going to make them knee highs. So I will definitely use a ton, probably more this month than I used last month of the yarn, but they look smaller because instead of knitting a size, I think the ones from my son, I knit like a size 8 women's. These are a size 5, so they're about 2 inches smaller than the previous ones. And yeah, I think my daughter will love them. They're going to be too big for her. I've already tried them on her, and since her foot is still in a child size shoe, I'm just gonna probably give them to her and she can pull them up really high and just kind of have them not fit, and then they will grow into fitting. So that'll be nice to have socks that she can wear for a long time. And then the last thing has gotten a ton of love on it because it is perfect Olympic knitting. And this is in a Tangerine Designs spinning fiber bag. It actually has spinning non-plied singles in the bottom of this that I need to work on that are on a bobbin. But in here is my Kryptonite shawl by Melanie Berg, and I'm knitting it out of 3 colors of Stunning String Studio. Still so many ends to weave in. But the last time that you saw this, it was down here. I made sure to put in a progress keeper. So last time it was down here. And then now I have, I have worked up from down there. So probably, I don't know, 18 inches done on this. So I finished two lace repeats and 1 giant striped section, and now I'm working on the next striped section, which, like I said, it's perfect Olympics knitting, and it's not going to get any bigger. It just kind of changes the shape now, so you can kind of see it's getting longer on this side and shorter on this side because the shape is asymmetrical. So yeah, I don't know that I'm on the downward stretch, but I'm close. I am nervous because there's still quite a bit left to this shawl, and I don't know why, because the green and the white are done in stripes, so there should not be such a drastic difference between these cakes. Like, look at that, you can see there's tons of the white left compared to this little bit of the green. And I don't know if, I didn't weigh them before I started, so I don't know if they just gave me a lot less of the green, like if it was not actually anywhere near a full skein, which kind of would be upsetting. But now that I'm this far into the shawl, I have no way of knowing that. And I'm just hoping that it gets me through the shawl, because that would be extremely disappointing if I had to order an entire new skein because I was not given, because I don't know, sometimes I know with dyers, they'll get like a giant cone and then they will pull off from it and do several. So I don't know if, like, I just was given maybe 4/5 of a skein, so I didn't get all the amount, because it's definitely smaller, and they're not, one is not more tightly compacted than the other, and it's not good. So I'm not feeling great about this, but I'm going to just keep knitting and see what happens. But if I do have to get another skein to finish my shawl, I will be very disappointed. Which I don't normally I'm like, oh, whatever, but it just, yeah, I might shorten the shawl and just try to make it work, because I just don't want to have to buy a whole nother skein to finish off when I should have been given a full skein to begin with. So that is all of the knitting. I'm thinking about trying to maybe ply some of my singles for during the ravellinics too, since they would count as a whip. And I do have one more that I did a row on, but I didn't even bring it down to bother to show you because it's just a row. But it is a cabled hat that I am working on for my future sister-in-law. It's my brother's fiance, and I'm knitting her a hat. So it was supposed to be a hat for this Christmas, but I ended up giving her something else, and it'll be a hat for next year. So I'm just working on Christmas presents ahead of time. Most of the stuff that I'm trying to have, most of the stuff that I'm doing be gifts this year. And then the whips that I'm finishing up, a lot of them are for me, but other stuff, if I can make it into a gift, or if it's something new, then have that be a gift, so that I can have more Christmas gifts. Because last year a lot of people really wanted hand knit Christmas gifts, and I just didn't do it, because sometimes you think that you're gonna be able to do stuff and then struggles come up and you just don't get to. So that is all the knitting and spinning and stuff. For the podcast group, I went over and was on there, and I think I was putting up threads and stuff, and I was very proud of myself because I hardly ever go on Ravelry anymore. You know, it's just something that I go on to like look up a pattern or something really quickly, but I don't often spend time there. I think the only place that I spend time on, and it's not even very long, would be Goodreads, but that I can just like enter a page number. It's really fast. It doesn't take as long of typing. Typing up stuff takes me quite a while, just personally. So yeah, I went on there and I put up some threads, and I remember to put up the prize thread for the prize that I showed last time. I put up a little late, so instead of drawing for it, like a week late, so instead of drawing for it right now, I will draw for it next podcast. So if you watched the podcast last time and went over to go enter for the prize of the yarn and the stitch markers and stuff that I'm put together, and you didn't see it there, it is up there now. So you can go and do that. And I will draw for that next time. And I think it's about, well, no, I think we still have a month before I'm gonna draw for some prizes for the 18 and 2018. You can still put your stuff up in there. I mean, if it's the last month, if it's December, and you can get 18 knitting things done in 1 month, then that's fine. You just, you'll be entered for prizes if you're up in there in that thread. And so now for the books this time, I have 2 books. This kind of is becoming my tradition, but this first book is called The Namesake, and it's by Jhumpa Lahiri, and I've reviewed one book by her before years ago. It was called In Other Words, where she talked about her love of the Italian language and how it was her 3rd language, and she talked about the part of being, having this Indian heritage to where her parents came over from India, and she spoke their native language at home, but then she had English that she learned from there, but she fell in love with Italian. And I really loved that book by her, but I hadn't read anything else. So I got this at a used bookstore that was near my daughter's preschool a while ago, when she was in preschool last year. And they have tons of books in there that are for really great prices, and it was like jumped out to me, her name, and then I knew that I wanted to read it. So this is just about a family that moves from Calcutta, and it's about a mother and father, or when the book starts off, they're a young married couple and they have kids and raising their kids, and then it becomes a story about their kids. So it's just a story of a family, and it's very simple, but her writing is so rich. It's beautiful, and this book took me a really long time to read just because the writing, for me, it wasn't a book where I sat down and like read 50 pages at once. It was a book where I sat down and read 10 pages, and I read it very slowly. I'm not a fast reader. I'm a medium speed reader, I would say, but I read this very slowly because I just was so lost in the beauty of her language. And it says on some part of here that she may be one of the best writers of this generation, and I agree. I can't find where the quote was. It might be somewhere. And it's just beautifully done. And whenever the mom in the story would talk about making different Indian foods and stuff that she was making, it really made me crave Indian food. And there's this one part in here where she's trying to recreate a recipe or something that she had had as a little girl. It was like a street cart food that she had had growing up in India. And I was like, oh, I wonder what the recipe is for that, because she doesn't tell you, and I never had heard of it. So I was trying to figure out what it could possibly be and going online and really wanting to try to find what it was, but I haven't found it yet. But it was a beautiful book, and it was so well written. And if you like really simple books about families, I would say that you would probably love this. And it definitely, goes into the immigrant experience and just kind of dealing with how young children with their parents had immigrated over, how they kind of will pull away maybe from their heritage and then come back to it. And it's just beautifully done. So this is The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, and if you love really beautifully, richly written fiction on immigrant families and Native, Indian people, I would highly recommend her writing. It's beautiful, and I have a couple other of her books that I I'm excited to read. The next book, it has like a special place in my heart now. This is called The Music Shop and is a novel by Rachel Joyce. And it has mixed reviews on Goodreads, which makes me think that I'm probably just not a harsh book critic. But I absolutely loved this book, and it brought me to tears at several points. And so the premise of this book is it's about a man named Frank who owns a record store in the late 80s, 1980s, of course, in England. And he runs it on this, his shop is on this street where there are a whole bunch of other shops that have kind of become, after the war, there's like an area that was bombed. It has kind of deteriorated and become kind of, the brick and mortar is falling down around them. And the shops are kind of dying, like graffiti is coming and is happening, and there's violence in the street and stuff. So the area is kind of becoming run down, but they're trying to hold on to this little community that they've built of these people. And he loves records, and Frank, the owner of the store, has this special ability to look at a person when they come in and to kind of read their soul and know what they need to listen to for their certain mood, either to like kind of console them or to uplift them, or he just knows what they need. And people will come in with broken hearts, or people will come in with love problems, or with exciting new love, or just come in saying, I like this artist, what's another one? And so, or people will be having marriage problems, and he heals their marriages with music. And it's just so beautiful. And the way, so the chapters are done to where there's a chapter in the present, and then there'll be a little snippet from the past, because Frank's mom was a terrible mother, but loved music and knew a lot about it. So they would play records together, and she would tell him about the artist. And so records kind of came to hold a special place in his heart because of that, even though like his mother, you know, never cooked meals for him or cookies or did motherly things, wouldn't even let him call her mom because his mom, I guess, was just too cool. But during those parts where it would, and each of the titles had a title of a song, or a lot of them did. So a lot of times I would listen to the music while it was discussing it in the chapter, and that just kind of added a layer of depth to it. And because the way Frank talks about his love of vinyl really made me want a record player. So I had an Amazon gift card from Christmas, and I knew Valentine's Day was coming up. So I had asked my husband if I could use here's the Amazon gift card for Christmas, take that, and then whatever is left that you would need can this be my Valentine's Day present? And he gave me the record player early, and then he gave me the records when we did our Valentine's Day celebration yesterday, when he surprised me. And so he just got me two used records, because I'm a person who loves ritual. I love the idea of taking the record out and putting it on the record player, and as a person who loves history, I love the story behind thinking about, he got used ones, and I love thinking about like who used that before, who listened to it, what were they feeling at the time when they listened to that. And I had gotten at a used bookstore a long time ago, before I ever owned a record player, a record of Simon and Garfunkel Bookends, because they just speak to me. They always have. Their music is like poetry, and it speaks to like a sadness that I feel a lot of times in life. And so I was able to listen to that on the record player, and I felt transported to a time that I was never able to experience. I had this deep love of the 60s, even though I was born decades too late, but I just really love that music. And so I had a candle lit, and I just sat on the bed and listened to Simon and Garfunkel Bookends, and just felt so happy and just so moved by not knowing the story behind that, because it is an older record, so it was probably a record that somebody got in the 60s, and what were they doing at the time, and what was their life like. And I'll never know, but it's just this beautiful mystery that you can kind of envision whatever you want to in your head. And so I've been loving my record player, and my husband got me a Billie Holiday and a Fleetwood Mac, and I've been messaging my parents and being like, what are some of your favorite bands and stuff like that, so I can, you know, include stuff that they loved, and kind of just, I don't want a whole bunch of modern cool records. I want really used records that have a story to tell. So yeah, and so I love this book, and even though it has, you know, mixed reviews, I guess since it has mixed reviews, maybe, you know, get it from the library, but I'm so glad I read this. It's not a long book. It could be read very quickly as opposed to The Namesake by June Bilahari. The chapters are shorter, and it's just, Frank's life has a lot of sadness in it because of his mom, but it also has a lot of happiness because of the community that he's surrounded himself with, these people on the street and the record shop, and he's kind of written love off because he thinks that he can't have love because of an event that happened in his past, which I won't tell you, but then a mysterious figure comes into his life somewhere in the book and tries to kind of break through that barrier and break into his heart. And it's kind of about some of the people that give the most really feel unworthy of receiving love. So it was just beautiful, and I was sobbing when I finished it. So yeah, The Music Shop by Rachel Joyce. And if you read either of those, I hope you really enjoy them. It's fun for me, you know, reading the books and kind of sharing a little bit of, it feels like sharing a piece of me when I share a book that I loved with you guys. So I hope you enjoy those, and I look forward to next time. I will be podcasting the Olympics. Ravellinics will be almost over, and I'm excited to show you how many whips I was able to work through during this time. Something about like competitions like this, not necessarily competitions, but like community events where it's like a whole bunch of people are doing the Ravellinics and a whole bunch of people are watching the Olympics. It just really gets me motivated to work on stuff. So hoping I can carry this motivation through till the Olympics end, even though I'm having trouble staying awake at night watching the Olympics. It's like 8 o'clock comes, 8:30, and I'm ready to go to bed. So yeah, I hope see you guys next time. And until then, have a wonderful couple of weeks, and I hope you get to do everything you love. Okay, bye guys.